أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. I want to read chapter, let's see. It's right here. Chapter 26, verses 123 to 159. Inshallah tonight. Okay? Try.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Ad rejected the messengers when their brother Eber said to them, "Would you not become God-fearing? Indeed, I am an honest messenger to you. Therefore you shall fear God and obey. I do not ask you for any wage. My wage comes from the Lord of the multiverse. You build all kinds of signs in every high place just to play, and you manufacture things as though you are going to be immortal. And when you strike forcefully. Therefore you shall fear God and obey, and fear the one who continues to give you your knowledge, who continues to give you livestock and sons, and gardens and springs. I fear for you the suffering of a great day." They said, "It is the same for us if you enlighten us or do not enlighten us. This is nothing but the same as previous generations. We will never suffer." They rejected him. Consequently, we annihilated them. Indeed, in this there is a sign, but most of them are not believers. And indeed, your Lord is the Almighty, the All-Merciful. Thamud rejected the messengers when their brother Saleh said to them, "Would you not become God-fearing? Indeed, I am an honest messenger to you. Therefore you shall fear God and obey. I do not ask you for any wage. My wage comes from the Lord of the multiverse. Do you think you will be left alone here, secure in gardens and springs, and the crops and the date palms with beautiful blossoms? And you carve homes in the mountains skillfully? Therefore you shall fear God and obey. And do not obey the ways of the transgressors, those who corrupt the land and never do any righteous deed." They said, "Indeed, you are bewitched. You are no more than a human being like us. So bring us a sign if you are truthful." He said, "Here is this camel. She drinks on a different day from your known drinking day, and do not touch her with any harm, lest you incur a suffering on a great day." Later on, they maimed her and ended up sorry the next day. Consequently, they endured the suffering. Indeed, in this there is a sign, but most of them are not believers. And indeed, your Lord is the Almighty, the All-Merciful.
Okay, thank you, mashallah. Okay, very good. And let's go back to the beginning when we started. Any questions, any comments, any observations?
Assalamualaikum, Mr. Parvez.
Walaikum assalam.
I was just looking at the verse 132, and it says, and fear the one who continues to give you your knowledge. I just don't know how to magnify this concept, because for us at least we are blessed to see the mathematics, which is a facet of knowledge that comes directly from God.
Yeah.
And as you showed in today's Jummah prayers, that it keeps expanding, and the way the numbers are connected is beyond our imagination. And I mean, you start enjoying the glorification of God because it's so multi-layered. You see these numbers. I mean, you see 23rd permutation group, 19th permutation group, and we know 23 itself is 19, right, in base 8.
Yes.
And then you go on, you see 96, 77. 77 is itself the sum of all the prime numbers from 2 to 19. I mean, it's layered over layer, everything. I mean, you can just like playing in the sand with the grains. You keep separating them out, and it just goes on.
Yeah.
And the knowledge keeps expanding, and it just started from that 59:21. So much has come out. I mean, we have to crumble in front of God and reverence Him. So I just wanted to point this out that, I mean, you just spoke about knowledge also, that being the vicegerent, the knowledge was given, and as the knowledge comes, we have to use it properly and in the service of good. So this knowledge that is coming to us also, we need to better ourselves. Hopefully we'll be honored to have received this knowledge and do good service to God alone. That's what I wanted to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Very true. Very true. Yes. Yes, indeed.
Assalamu alaikum, Dr. Fazely. Peace, everyone.
Wa alaikum assalam. Peace. Go ahead, please, Video.
Yeah, I was thinking that, well, not even thinking. I thought to myself that God already knew who Satan was, and that He just used whatever He did to expose him, so that so we wouldn't be tripped up. I mean, if we didn't know who he was, it would be worse for us.
Yep.
Yeah. I just thought that he just didn't become a disbeliever, that he had those thoughts all along.
Yep.
Okay.
At that time, he was exposed. I mean, this is the God system that that. Otherwise, before that, God could have said, "Okay, take this guy and just throw him out of here."
Right.
But but that's not the way God does it. He has to go through these tests. Everybody has to go through these tests. And when there is this imbalance is sort of introduced, iniquity is introduced in God's system, then what happens is, one has to be tested and exposed in order to be rejected, and that's exactly what happened to Satan. And then Adam had the same mistake. He made the same mistake. He disobeyed God's commandment also, and they ate from the tree that God told them not to eat from. And so that's the idea. The idea is that once they are exposed for the crime that they committed against God's system, then they are condemned to the destiny that God is telling them that's going to be awaiting you. And that's exactly what happened to us.
And Dr. Fazely, please explain the difference between imam and vicegerent. I mean, he called, I think, Abraham an imam, didn't he? To lead. Just go ahead. What's the difference?
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, you see, vicegerent is okay. It's you can actually see the meaning of it. Let's see. I think that's the best thing that I could find, because if you look at Khalifa, okay, then it's let me go back to here and go to 38:26. Okay, and it says Khalifa. So I just highlight this, and then you can go to the Google Translate and then let me go to Arabic and paste it here, Khalifa, and then it translates as successor. Okay, so that's how it's translated, successor. the word vicegerent. Let me go to English. Vicegerent. It's a definition of vicegerent, and you can just read it here together. And it says a person exercising delegated power on behalf of a sovereign or ruler. I like this better because of what God is saying to David. Okay, because if you look at this, because he said, "Oh, David, we have indeed made you a vicegerent on the land. Therefore, rule amongst people equitably and do not follow your ego." You see, so although God has given him the power, okay, he is still telling him that rule equitably and amongst the people and do not follow your ego, lest it will divert you from the path of God. So God is saying that do not let your own ego put in unnecessary information in the righteous thing that I have taught you and how to use it. Okay, so that's what God is saying. So that's what a vicegerent does. Okay, and that's what David was doing. So this verse, and David becomes a role model to the rest of us how to use the power that we have, because knowledge is power, and the knowledge that God has given us has to be used for good, not for evil. And it will have to be equitable amongst people, and we do this kind of thing. Do not follow your ego, so we cannot follow our own ego.
Got it. Thank you so much.
Okay. You're welcome.
I have a question on the same light. May I ask that question?
Yeah. Go ahead, please. Yes.
Basically, when we were talking in chapter 2, verse 30 about Adam being created to be the vicegerent, right? And to control land, right? This was the main function.
Yeah.
So I don't know if it's the same land that we are in, but he was created with that knowledge to control land. But then,
well, I retranslate that. Hold on a second. I retranslate that to matter.
Matter. Yeah.
Okay, because the matter is at our disposal. Okay, we'll manipulate matter, and that's the knowledge that God has given us. And for that, there are always two possible paths that you can take. One is for good, and one is for evil. And you can choose. And then God is basically telling us here in this verse 38:26 that it really has to be used for good. Okay, so that's the key.
But the main thing is that Adam was given that the knowledge. I mean, was shown to the angels, right? But then he fell, right? When he fell, then God says in Surah 67 verse 2 that He created death and life to see who will do better deeds.
Yeah.
I mean, it continues in the sense that knowledge I'm still going to give you, and I'm going to see who will do the better deed. I mean, that function still continues, but the matter that was there and the matter that is here is two different things, two different domains. Were we supposed to be not this domain?
This universe existed before that. Before Adam came here, this universe existed.
Mm-hmm.
And it was getting along just fine. There was no problem. Okay? And we can tell that, from historical and fossil, fossil
analysis.
The discoveries that we make with the fossils and things like that, all of those indicate that we are basically very recent here compared to the history of the universe. Okay? So, but all of those things that we know about matter, if you read 230, it's because it starts with another verse, and that verse is telling us. Let me just go back to. Okay, Here it says before that, it says, this is 229, okay? The one who created, he is the one who created for you everything with matter. You see, I changed this, okay? Ma fil ardi jami'an, okay? Then he turned to the vacuum and made it balance as 7 vacua. And he is the knower of all things. And then he says, then God says that we make him to the angels that I'm appointed of the vicegerent on the land. They said, will you appoint someone therein who will spread corruption and shed blood while we glorify and praise you and consider you sacred? He said, I have complete knowledge while you do not know. Okay? So there are so many lessons in this that we have to learn. And so the creation of matter is that knowledge is with us. That's how we can actually manipulate matter. Okay? So with matter you can make bombs to kill people. Okay? You can also build energy sources that serves people. And so there are several ways that you can use it, and then God tells us in 38:26 how we're supposed to use it. How is David supposed to use this honor of being the Khalifa or the vicegerent? Okay?
So that is where the test begins, because when we look at the universe, I mean, that's a summator. I mean, it is at peace with God. The universe itself is heaven. The universe itself is heaven. There's nothing wrong in that, right? But then comes the human in a certain area, and he, with that knowledge, he is transgressing, or he disturbs the balance out of his ignorance, or willingly disturbs the balance. That becomes the source of all the problems. But actually, this universe itself is a heavenly place, if we were to also comply. But we didn't comply, or we don't comply. So God's creation...
Because we use our ego. We use our ego. See, that's the problem. Yeah, the ego is going to lead us astray. And that's what David is admonished not to do.
Yeah, we want to think and solve the problem by ourselves, right? We question the system. So that ego is the one which is questioning the system of God, and we're creating chaos instead of coming into peace with God's creation.
Well, I mean, you question God's wisdom, why God did this. Okay, everybody says that. A lot of people say that, why God did this or create that. Would have been better without these things. Okay, but everything in God's system has a function, and so we have to be keenly aware of this fact that these things are not, as God says in the Quran, that these things are not created in vain. That there is a reason for these things that they exist the way they do exist. Okay? So we cannot question that. I mean, I don't know this I've told this story to you or not, but Rashad used to say this story about this Egyptian biochemist who genetically engineered the wheat not to have spikes. Because in there they use, the farmers use the sickle to harvest the wheat, and then these things will hurt their hands and stuff. And so he did it, and these beautiful wheat, they grew without the spikes. And so everybody was happy, and they said that Dr. So-and-so is going to get the Nobel Prize in chemistry, and so everybody was proud. All the students who were taking classes with him were very proud. And so Gamal Abdel Nasser came in there, and they planted this seed, and when it came out of the ground and it was harvest time, the birds came and ate them. Okay, so there is a reason for the spikes. The spikes are there so the birds will not go ahead and eat the wheat. Okay, but again, we think that we can do better. Okay, and that's what makes things worse.
Yeah, we disturb the balance, in other words.
We disturb the balance that God has created. So there is a reason for those spikes being there. Those are not just created in vain. Okay. So that shows the short-sightedness of humans, because we don't know enough, and we do not temper this knowledge that we have with God's information that He gives us. That when He does something, there is a reason for that, and we have to be happy with that. We have to be happy with that reason that God is actually establishes things the way He does. Okay, that's what the idea of we hear and we obey comes from.
Yeah, and we're not honoring the function He gave us, nor are we appreciative of what God has given us. And
That's
to
right.
Do the right
That's
thing.
right. Exactly.
That's why you keep saying be appreciative, because God is appreciative.
Yeah.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Assalamu alaikum, Dr. Fazely.
Welcome, salam. Yes, Anwar, go ahead, please.
The khutbah was awesome as usual. Thank you so much for it. But this is the first time I learned the word Khalifa is mentioned twice in the Quran. One for Adam, one for David. And in Surah 34, verse 10, I have it before me. I could read it out for you.
Mm-hmm.
And it is a direct example. The translation you just showed us, the delegation of power from the sovereign, and in this case it is God.
Yes.
And it is so beautifully put. And God says, and we endowed David with a bounty from us. O you mountain, glorify along with him, as well as you, O birds, and we softened the iron for him.
Yeah.
That was a direct delegation from God Almighty. It's so beautifully put. I mean, it's just amazing. Yeah.
Indeed. Yeah. And and then you go to the verse after that, and it says, see, this is what I was talking about today, about what should we do with the knowledge that God has given us about matter. And then God is telling him, He says, manufacture shields that perfectly fit.
Yes.
Not sword, shields.
Yeah. Shield, yeah.
Make an instrument of defense, not an instrument of aggression and offense.
And work righteousness.
Okay. That's what God is saying. And work righteousness is, indeed, I am seer of all that you do.
Mm-hmm.
Okay?
Yeah.
So, there are so many lessons in every one of these verses that we look over or we do not pay attention, but they are there. The wisdom and the knowledge that God has given us is already there, and we have to go along with it. But that softening the steel or softening iron for David, then this huge blessing that God gave him. Now, what should he do with it?
Mm-hmm.
And he manufactures shields.
Yeah. Absolutely. May I also mention something else, sir?
Yeah, please. Yeah.
Going to Surah 1, Al-Fatiha, when God says, إِيَّاكَ نَعْبُدُ وَإِيَّاكَ نَسْتَعِينُ, you alone we worship, you alone we ask for help.
Yes.
This has been going on. I mean, most people know this by heart, and they probably know the meaning of it. And it is the first chapter that you alone we worship, you alone we ask for help. Including myself, I did not even pay attention to that when I first read it when I was a kid. I mean, we had teachers that taught us from Arabic to our language to understand, but it never sunk in. And it is so clear and simple a commandment that God gives us in Surah Fatiha. And yet most of us forget that, sir.
Yep, exactly. We basically pay lip service. You see? We don't grasp the meaning of it. We don't grasp the idea that we are saying this and we have to go along with the utterance that we're actually making.
Absolutely.
But we're not. Okay, so that's the problem. Yeah.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you.
Assalamu alaikum, Dr. Fazely.
Welcome, Salam. Yes.
I just want to mention something else about David. I mean, I always wondered why the sheep and his opinion was why it was not a big thing, but why he asked repentance. And so, as vicegerent, God said, "Don't follow your own ego," and he caught himself.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm just also figuring that out after you told us who he was in that capacity, and so now it makes a lot of more sense than it did before.
Yep.
Salam, Dr. Fazly.
Welcome, Salam Shakra. Yes, go ahead, please.
I don't know whether this is the right question to ask or not, and you can tell me that it's not worth it. But I was, when that surah today, the surah verse 30 to 30, in that one it actually talks about the angels knowing that we were shedding blood. And then God is also telling in it that we are going to be the vicegerent. And then they are asking the question. So I wanted to, this has been on my mind for a long time, that we already committed the mistake at that point in time when God is doing all this to us. So basically, is it because God is actually saying all this for the people who are going to listen to Him and follow the path, and so the chance of becoming the vicegerent is simply to make it easier for you to go back to Him and fulfill the covenant?
This is.
Or I'm wrong.
No, the idea is that you have to be very careful here. This verse, although has the word Khalifa in it, it's actually by God has been made to be a timeless statement. Okay, because if you read this the way I translate it, He is the one who. I'm sorry. And when your Lord said to the angels, "I am the appointer of a vicegerent on the land," not appointed or appointing, I'm appointing. Okay, I'm the appointer. As the Arabic says, "Inni ja'ilun." Okay, it means I am the appointer. Okay, so God is in a realm that time, as we are used to it, time which is present, past, and future, does not apply the same way. Okay?
Yes.
So this is different from the one that God is talking to David, because that one is in this world here. This is not in this world. So that's the difference.
So is it okay? So then it is actually applying only to those people who are going to be successful, or am I wrong?
Well, whatever it is, I'm just saying that. You see, because the chronology of this thing, after that it goes that, and then He taught Adam all the names afterwards. He presented them to the angels and said, "Inform me of these names if you are truthful." They said, "Glory be to you. We have no knowledge except what you have taught us. Indeed, you are the all-knowing, the all-wise." Okay? And then God is telling Adam to do this. And He said, "Oh, Adam, inform them of their names once he informed them of their names, he said, did I not tell you that I fully know the secrets of vacuum and matter? I fully know what you declare and what you conceal. So he's not talking to the angels, okay? Now the test comes in here. The test comes in here and it says there's an event happens in there. This event is when we said to the angels, honor Adam, they all honored him except Iblis, who refused. He turned arrogant and became a disbeliever. Okay? And then we said to Adam, dwell in paradise, you and your wife, and eat from it whatever you desire. However, do not approach this tree, lest both of you become transgressors. And then we also disobeyed God, because this was a commandment to us. And we disobeyed God, and we ate from the fruit.
Okay. Okay, so basically, let me understand. So you said that the first sentence is in a timeless frame.
Yeah.
And then the rest of it followed. And then first of all, Iblis made the mistake, and then we made the mistake as well.
Yeah.
But then it still gives you the chance to save yourself.
Of course, yeah. Of course, the door is always open. Okay? There is no door. There are no doors. That's actually the wrong thing to put in there. There are no doors. God is always available. Okay, let's put it that way. And, I have that verse in our website, okay? That when my servant asks you about me, I'm always nearby. Okay, so it's not a door that you have to knock on or go through a door. It's not like that. It's God is always there. And so
actually, you mentioned this before. One time you mentioned about this timeless time.
Yeah.
I remember that now. You said that. This one was it's very enlightening. Thank you so much for that. Can I ask you another question?
Yeah, go ahead.
So what struck me about basically David for sure, but about when you talked last time about Abraham and how he was a nation unto himself.
Yes.
And I realized that actually all messengers are in some way nations into themselves, because they actually lead their lives 24/7 based on the Quran. I mean, they are not socializing. They are not, going around doing all kinds of things that most people do. So
there's only one nation. No, there's only one nation, Shaka, and that's the nation of Abraham. There are no other nations.
Yeah, but it's the nation of Abraham. But then you are also becoming part of that nation, right? I mean, because
we have to be part of that nation. We have to be part of that nation. That's what God
I agree with that.
2278. Okay?
Yes,
so
I understand that.
Okay.
But I was telling that the kind of life that person in the nation must live, is to be that 24/7 aware of how to lead your life every second, every moment.
Yeah, of course. Otherwise, you don't belong to that nation. If you violate the rights of that nation, then you do not belong to that nation. Okay? So there are not different nations. There's only one nation, and that's the nation of Abraham.
Yeah.
And all of the messengers are part of the nation of Abraham. Okay?
Yeah, I did not put it properly.
Yeah.
You're right. Okay, that's what I wanted to find out. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Anything else? Any other comments or questions, observations? Any discussions? Just going back to what we were just discussing, that I said that, God is always there. And so, making the statement that door is always open or something, there are no doors. Okay, so that's something that we have to remember. And all of these people who have rejected the messengers and the message that God has sent through the messengers, and after all they have done, for every segment of these messengers, when it's over, when the whole thing is over, God is saying that, for example, in 26:140, and indeed your Lord is the Almighty, the All-Merciful. Okay? So the good news is that no matter what we do, okay, we can do all kinds of terrible things that we cannot, in our own hearts and minds, we cannot forgive those people. Okay? But God does that. And God's mercy is encompassing everything. And so this is always there. This good news is always there. Okay? So as you see here, this is all merciful. Okay? If I go back to 122, 26:122. And indeed your Lord is the Almighty, the All-Merciful. Okay? So this is after the messengers went to them. And they were really evil people, and they did their utmost to reject God's message and disobey God. Okay? God always comes back with this information, which is really good news. And indeed, your Lord is the Almighty, the All-Merciful. Okay? And that is amazing. And so that's repeated after the history of every messenger. And in all of these things, you notice that God is saying, like in 123, and I had rejected the messengers. Okay, not messengers. So a series of messengers went there, and then it came to the time of Eber, and that was enough. Okay, and so that was the time that they were supposed to see God's might. Let's put it that way. Okay, Lahu al-Aziz al-Rahim is the Almighty. So they saw God's might, but within that might that they saw always ends up in mercy. Okay? And that is amazing. It absolutely humbles you that somehow God, His mercy is so immense, is ever expanding, let's put it this way. And there is no end to it. Any other comments? Any other observations? Any discussions?
May I just also, Dr. Fazely, as go with what you're saying, read something that affected me this week, so in God's mercy, because I'm living in New York, there's been so many things happening, people getting hit, knocked in the head, thrown in the subway, and I kind of felt strange about going out. So last night I read 57:22, And it says, no accident can happen on the land or to yourselves that is not recorded before we make it happen.
Yes.
This is indeed easy for God. This
Yes.
is so that you may not despair of any loss, nor boast over anything he has bestowed upon you from God. Does not love any boastful, arrogant. And I don't know that I've ever seen this before. I don't know if it's the way you translated it. I just never saw that before. And I called two people just to tell them about that verse, because this is where we live, and it's if you're talking about mercy, that was just merciful.
Yeah. It is amazing. Yeah, absolutely amazing. And you know, again, what basically God is telling us, He's basically taking the fear out of us. And He's saying, look, it's in my hands. Don't worry about it. Yeah. So, you know, those people, remember that they refused to go to war? When they were trying to mobilize, they didn't, because they said, oh, you guys are foolish because you're going there and this, you're going to get killed and all kinds of stuff. Right. And He said, you die in your bed. If it was your time, you're going to die in your beds. You don't have to go to war.
Yeah.
Okay? If you're supposed to die, that's how you die. And so there are a lot of things that, you know, we actually think that somehow we can do things to, you know, to lengthen our life or do something. That's why I keep saying that, you know, when you go to a doctor, it's not the doctor who is healing you. It's really God who is doing that. Okay? Because the same medication that's prescribed to a group of people with the same kind of ailment, not different, same kind of ailment. And somehow it works for that person or two of those people, and then it doesn't work for the rest of those guys. So who's actually planning this and who's making this to work this way? It's God who is doing that. Okay? And that's why you have all these studies that they do about medications and stuff, and they have, you know, thousands of people, thousands of sick people or something that they do the experiments on, because they say we need the largest statistics. Okay? And the same thing with the vaccines. Vaccines are not 100% effective. Okay? They have an efficacy of say 90%, 80%. Flu shots are good only 50-60% or something like that. That means it doesn't work for the rest of those guys. 40% of the people, they get the flu shot, but they also get the flu. Okay? So the question is that, who is doing this? Okay? It's God who is doing this. So if somehow you're supposed to still live, okay, that medication works for you. There are a lot of medications who have side effects. Okay, that somehow some people cannot take those medications, and some people do. Some people just go through this as though nothing is happening and they're just fine. Question is, who is doing that? Is the doctor who is doing it? No. The doctor just tells you, take this medication, take this, and this is how you take it. But the rest of it is all up to God. Okay? So if that's supposed to work with you with certain efficacy, and again with the least amount of side effect or no side effect, okay? And then the next guy comes with the same ailment that you have, and that person is going to have trouble. It doesn't work, or it works and then the person has all kinds of side effects and cannot take it, has to quit. So again, who is doing this? Where is the final say comes from? It's from God. Okay? And that's what we have to understand and realize, how things work.
Well, thank you for the clarity. It's a mercy for me.
MashaAllah. Okay, anything else? Any other comments or questions, observations? Okay, if there are no more questions, we quit for tonight, and inshallah we hear from you next week then. Okay, let's do the 3 al-Fatiha that we usually